MNR fire crews continue to battle several out-of-control wildfires across the region. Good evening and thank you for joining us. A massive forest fire is closing in on Wabsamoon First Nation.
It's the second blaze to seriously threaten that community in as many weeks. Fire Information Officer Chris Marchand confirms the community has been evacuated as Kenora Fire 20 approaches, and crews are working to save the infrastructure there.
The community underwent an evacuation yesterday with just a few key personnel and firefighting staff remaining in the town site. So today, CL-415 water bombers are providing air attack on the parts of the fire that are closest to the community. And crews on the ground are setting up sprinkler systems and on critical infrastructure and other priority structures within the community.
The fire started in the village of Ingolf on Monday and has quickly spread another 40 kilometers north, burning over 20,000 hectares. It's now within 2.5 kilometers of Wabsamoon. Area residents report structural damages to camps and cottages along the fire's path. This is the second fire to recently threaten the First Nation. Marchand says the conditions that had helped keep Kenora Fire 14 away are now pushing Fire 20 closer to the community.
Luckily, to this point, we've had these south winds that have been pushing fire activity and smoke away from Wabsamoon, and keeping that fire as less of a problem for that community. But yet on Monday we had this fire, way to the south, which has since closed that distance and become a threat to this community.
Neither blaze is under control. The fire hazard across most of the Northwest is currently high to extreme, but the MNR has not implemented a restricted fire zone at this point.
Brodie Library was closed today following a violent incident involving a staff member yesterday evening. Library officials say it's part of a concerning trend as library employees have faced a growing number of alarming incidents in recent months. Yesterday's incident involved an unprovoked attack by a patron who had previously been banned from library premises. The victim required medical attention, and the incident left other staff members deeply shaken. Library CEO Richard Togman says the individual has violated that ban multiple times. Over the past year, incidents of abuse, assault, and threats of violence at the public libraries have risen 38%. The library board is now calling on the city for enhanced safety measures.
One of the things we're discussing right now is coming to City Council and asking for some money just dedicated to safety and security upgrades at the library, which will likely include security guards. I think it's just gotten to a point where we tried handling on our own, tried to bring in some specialized resources, but we're getting overwhelmed. We just don't have the capacity to do it, and our operating budget is already stretched thin.
Togman believes the rise in incidents at Brodie is due to the closure of the safe consumption site at Norwest and the planned demolition of Victoriaville, which has displaced many people in the downtown South Core.
The demolition of Victoriaville will begin next month. Finway General Contractor has officially been awarded the tender to demolish the facility and reconstruct Victoria and Syndicate Avenues.
The $18.4 million project is expected to take about 2 years. Jessica Clement has the details.
Finway General Contractor was awarded the tender for the Victoria Avenue revitalization project with a bid of over $18 million. City staff met with them on Tuesday to finalize plans and set up a timeline. Residents will start seeing fencing go up around the last week of May and see the actual work begin the first week of June. During Monday night's council meeting, City Engineering Manager Aaron Ward said the first thing Finway will do is set up additional entry points so the public will be able to access businesses at Victoriaville.
The local businesses here will remain open during construction. And in addition to construction signage that will be installed, please also visit the city's Get Involved page for Reimagine Victoriaville Phase 3 construction for more information on how to continue to access not just the city's services within Victoriaville, but the private businesses in the area.
Ward says demolition and reconstruction is expected to take around 2 years. The project will see the removal of the 45-year-old roof at Victoriaville Center and the street reopened to motorists with added bike lanes, widened sidewalks, and parking on the south side of the street. Ward also mentioned that Finway will recycle around 80 to 90% of material from the demolition.
So they have a very a very aggressive approach to this, which we are quite in support of. They feel they can actually salvage 80 to 90% of all the building materials. That is the mall roof structure, the steel, all the concrete floor, the walls that need to be renovated. They can recycle 80 to 90% of that. One of the biggest things coming out of this, of course, is steel from the roof, the second being the concrete from the mall floor. They're actually going to take a lot of the concrete from the mall floor back to their site, repurpose it into gravel, and then bring it back to site to use as granular for construction.
The city will launch a new webpage for Phase 3 of the project later this week on the Get Involved website. Jessica Clement, TBT News.
City Council will be asked to award the construction contract for the proposed indoor turf facility at its May 26th meeting. The tender went out last fall, and more than 20 design teams expressed interest in the project. The hangar-style facility would be built next to the community auditorium. Only 3 contractors were able to move into the request for proposal stage: Tom Jones Corporation, Finway General Contractors, and McDonald's Brothers Construction. Then, over the winter, the companies developed their designs and finalized their bid price. The city's manager of Capital Facilities Construction, Kelvin Jankowski, isn't able to say yet which company will be recommended to council, but the good news is he notes that all 3 submissions were within the city's $42 million budget for the project.
So part of the requirement of the RFP was that there was a budget cap, and that each of the proposals had to be under that cap, and all 3 were under that cap. We achieved all the goals we set out to achieve with the beginning of this process. So now it's just got this one final step.
Jankowski hopes if council approves the contract and everything goes well, the turf facility will be up and running in the fall of 2026.
Premier Doug Ford and Manitoba Premier Wabsamoon signed an agreement today to boost interprovincial trade between the 2 neighboring provinces.
It comes as U.S. tariffs threaten the economics of both provinces. CTV's Siobhan Morris has the details from Queen's Park.
With the stroke of a marker, Manitoba becomes the 3rd province to agree to break down trade barriers with Ontario.
Our 2 provinces already do approximately $19.5 billion of interprovincial trade every single year, but we can do better.
The goal is to ease the movement of labor and goods between the provinces, including with direct-to-consumer alcohol sales.
We're knocking down trade barriers, and we're building up Team Canada, Ontario, Manitoba, and everybody coming to the table. It's a great thing to see.
More trade across this country is part of the strategy to deal with U.S. tariffs. Those tariffs are going to shape what we see in Thursday's Ontario budget.
We can always balance a year or 2, but what scares me are governments that go in there and start slashing and burning.
We know the spending plan will include locking in a cut to the gas tax, taking tolls off Highway 407 between Pickering and Clarington, and expanding a manufacturing tax credit.
It's going to be about building our province, creating more jobs, more opportunities, making ourselves more competitive, putting money back into people's pockets, supporting businesses.
The opposition sees the budget as a test for meeting the moment.
We want to see the government talk about how we're going to build new supply chains, how we're going to tariff-proof our province. A lot of that also involves making sure that Ontarians have access to the best quality health care, the best schools.
The Liberals believe this is the moment for progressive Conservatives to make good on a 7-year-old promise to cut taxes for middle-income earners.
There is so much uncertainty that putting back more money in their pockets that they can control, it is the right thing to do.
All the opposition leaders agree one thing they'd like left out of the budget is a proposed tunnel under Highway 401.
When we have cheaper solutions to traffic, like paying the tolls for truckers on the 407, and we have such urgent needs.
That was CTV's Siobhan Morris reporting. Federal Minister Patty Hajdu faced the media for the first time today since she was appointed to her new role by Prime Minister Mark Carney yesterday. The Thunder Bay Superior North MP has moved from Indigenous Services to Minister of Jobs and Families. Hajdu says she and all of the cabinet will be focused on securing Canada's economy amid the trade war with the U.S.
that's the mission that we have ahead of us as a cabinet, is to strengthen the Canadian economy and protect workers from the shock that's coming from a changing economic relationship with the United States. And that's a task that the Prime Minister's given me, along with many other ministers, to ensure that we support workers no matter what.
Along with the newly created Jobs and Families portfolio, Haidu has also regained her previous role as minister responsible for FedNor. During today's scrum at the House of Commons, reporters asked Haidu about Alberta Premier Danielle Smith's criticism of Carney's choices, specifically the new Environment Minister, and having only one Alberta MP in cabinet.
Well, look, I think that there's an opportunity to work with all kinds of voices all across the country, and I think Mr. Carney has said that we will do that. We will serve all Canadians, and that's the way governments should think about the way that we operate, actually, is that regardless of who voted for us, regardless of your particular policy perspective, we're there to work for you. We might not always agree. It's a big country with lots of different agendas and priorities, but we can do this work together.
The town of Ignace held an open house yesterday to help residents get in touch with the NWMO and find out more about the planned deep geological repository for Canada's nuclear waste.
The event featured 2-hour-long presentations and dozens of booths set up for community members to gather information. Justin Hardy has the story.
Roughly 100 community members attended the first session of the day. They were given presentations by a number of different NWMO departments and town committees. They also had the chance to ask questions and talk one-on-one with presenters. Events like these are very important to keeping an open line of dialogue between the community and nuclear waste management officials, according to Mayor Kim Bagri. She says the growth in community involvement in these types of events is something to be proud of.
The first year, there was maybe 100. The second year, there was over 500 people. So people want to learn and educate themselves. And I think it's a great opportunity for Ignace, for them to come here and, like I said, get educated more. If they need more information, this is the place to get it, when we have the open houses and the different booths are set up for them to ask the questions to.
Today's open house is the first of many planned to be held throughout the roughly 10-year-long regulatory process. Residents had questions on a variety of topics, but what seemed top of mind was the future for the community's youth.
They never talked anything about young kids growing up, and I think that should have been in there very important, because by the time they get it ready, those are going to be not teenagers, they're going to be adults.
And when they discussed employment opportunities, I want to make sure that those employment opportunities that they consider the people in Ignace, the qualifications, etc. I asked, is there a percentage of how many people will be hired from this community? Because so far, I haven't seen that.
Well, we were really concerned on the agreement that's come out. There's been rumors around town lately that it's going to be renegotiated because there's such a vast difference between our agreement and Wabagoon's agreement, which is roughly 50 times larger. So that's a pretty big concern for residents.
The open house featured 2 sessions, and more similar events will be held in the coming years. But for now, residents can still go to the Learn More Center in Ignace or contact the Community Engagement Committee with questions they may have. Justin Hardy, TBT News.
Thunder Bay Fire Rescue saved 2 people from the water around noon yesterday. The pair were in the Nebing River near the Parkdale subdivision and struggling to remain above the water. 4 firefighters in water gear entered the river along with a rescue boat. The 2 were successfully brought to shore and received care from awaiting paramedics before being taken to hospital in good condition. Fire officials are reminding the public to use caution around rushing waterways.
Traffic on Highway 1117 in Shunya was slowed this morning after a tractor-trailer seemingly lost control and ended up blocking some of the lanes. It happened around 9 a.m. near the Shunya landfill entrance. The front of the rig crashed into the median, which separates the east and westbound lanes of the divided highway, the back portion of the left crossing and westbound lanes. OPP say fortunately no other vehicles were involved and there were no injuries reported. The rig was quickly towed away and no charges were laid against the driver.
All right, let's turn to the weather now, and Fiona, another very nice warm day out there with temperatures getting into the 20s once again.
Yeah, and a couple degrees higher than we were expecting, so every little degree helps. It was a beautiful day, loads of sunshine. We topped out with a high of 22, which is a little bit above normal. That was after an early morning low of 7. Winds were from the east-northeast most of the day, anywhere from 16 to 35 kilometers per hour in the afternoon under partly cloudy skies. Now, if we take a look at what's going on across the region, we've been talking about the heat warnings in areas to the west, but the heat really spread out today. Now, Fort Frances, Dryden, Kenora, some of the hot spots at this hour at 29, 31, and 30 Celsius. Loads of sunshine throughout this region. It was fluctuating between partly and mainly cloudy skies up towards Red Lake. Now, it looks a little bit cooler now, but when you factor in the humidex, making it feel about 3 or 4 degrees warmer than these numbers would suggest, it all kind of balances out. And into Armstrong and Greenstone, they also saw humidex values make it feel closer to 27, 28 for much of the day, and even higher during the highest temperatures in the afternoon. Now, along the North Shore, well, very seasonal, but it is cooler. 18 in Nipigon, Marathon, 17 in Wawa, and Sault Ste. Marie. And in fact, along the eastern shores, temperatures really didn't move a whole lot. It was very mild last night, overnight low of 15 in the Sault, but only warming up to 19. And that was with skies fluctuating between partly cloudy, mainly cloudy, and drizzle. So at this time, we've got mainly cloudy skies, but they've had definitely a mixed bag. Tonight, we are going to see very similar temperatures to last night. A low of 8 is expected. And despite all the sunshine that we did see today, clouds will continue to increase this evening. And then overnight, there is a 40% chance of showers. Winds are going to be very consistent, calming down to about 10 kilometers per hour from the east, and pretty much stick with that. But that chance of rain is going to continue overnight into tomorrow. And I'm thinking it would be a good idea if folks getting up in the morning brought an umbrella to work, because 40% is pretty close to flipping a coin, but there's even more rain on the way behind it, and I'll have more details on how that will pan out later on in the news hour.
Okay, thanks a lot, Fiona. And of course, we heard about the wildfires throughout the region.
Rain
so
is good.
That rain is not a bad thing at this point. Thanks a lot.